the American Connection, and the Honorable Zoe Bakoko is back from her days of travel, so she will be joining me, as well as Dorothy will be joining in the program later on today. Let me just say thank you so much to Margaret Opio and her guest she had on this morning, Belinda, on her program this morning. A very good program, very, very well done, and we are so happy to have them to be a part of the Voice Uganda radio family. Margaret has become a dear sister of mine, and is starting. She laughed when I told her I listened to her show. She said, good luck with understanding everything. So now she's starting to send me words, one email at a time, so that I can start to learn the language. So I appreciate her so much for that, and I'm thankful. Let me tell you, this is the way we open the doors. There's so many dialects and languages in Uganda, and we have to make sure that we're listening to one another. And at some point or another, we're all going to have to stretch across the aisles and make sure that we can understand and embrace each other where they're at. So I appreciate her so much for her heart, and I thank her so much for her program this morning. Let me remind you again that on my program here, Freedom at Hand, next Sunday, I will have the chair for the Federal Alliance for Democracy and Development in Uganda, Samuel Mukasa, and the chair for Freedom and Unity Front, Professor Otunu, will be on the program. I will be asking them some questions, some that I know a lot of you probably have, in which they will be answering, and we will also open up the phone lines so that you can talk a little more to them about our partnership and agreeing to work together, the direction we want to see the country go, the direction we want to see the two organizations go together to hopefully bring about more organizations that will start to join in as we start to unite and become stronger on our move forward into a new and a better Uganda. So make sure you tune in next Sunday for that here on Freedom at Hand. It promises to be a very, very good show, and we're looking forward to having the two of them on board. Zoe, come on in and say good morning. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Miss Brenda. I'm really feeling well today, and I'm excited to be back again. Last Sunday, I was not able to participate. As you said, I had meetings to attend, and I was traveling. And I missed everybody and all the listeners because my Sundays have been dedicated to the new Uganda, and being on radio, waking up, talking and sharing with the listeners is just profound. And I am glad to be back again today. And later at 12 o'clock, I will also be having my Lugbara program, the way the Yoma Dania. And I hope many people will be able to tune in and listen as well, because as you rightly put it, it's time for us to begin to talk to many people. And in the new Uganda, we know that everybody in Uganda is an equal partner, and that we all coexist together. And so therefore, we are going to have as many languages as possible on Voice of Uganda Radio, so that we can reach out to many of our listeners, and they will be part and parcel of the change that is going to occur in Uganda. And so I am really blessed. And next week is going to be very exciting, because we are going to have the two chairmen for Federalist.
Are you there? Did I lose her? I think I lost her for a minute there. So we will give her a minute. Maybe she disconnected herself some sort of way there. But yes, she is right. It's going to be a great, great week next week, and we want you to really be a part of that and participate. Start to ask the questions that you need to ask. One of the things we always say here on Voice Uganda Radio, we are moving forward into a new Uganda for the Ugandan people. And because of that, we are blessed to have those two individuals on. and we will be blessed to continue to answer your questions as we continue to move forward. Zoe, as she has just stated, was happy to be back this weekend because she's been traveling. We are always traveling on behalf of the Ugandan people, and we are always moving forward. We are always doing things to bring about change, to open the eyes and the ears and the minds and the hearts of others who invite us into their organizations and invite us into their group talks to hear and understand and know what is truly happening to the Ugandan people. Did we get Zoe back? No, I guess she's still off. She should hopefully come back on in a little bit here. So please make sure that you join us for that. Let me also take this opportunity also to say when we are uploading these broadcasts into YouTube, and we are uploading these broadcasts into YouTube. Usually, if the show runs over the weekend, it takes us about a day or so to upload them in YouTube. When you go out there and you type in Voice of Uganda Radio, in YouTube, the search is Voice Uganda Radio / and type in whatever program you want to see or whoever's name. Like if you do Voice Uganda Radio / Brenda, it will pull up all my shows and my shows only. So you don't have to search through all the shows to find what you want. Democratization with Professor Mubru, if you type in his name, it'll just pull up all of his shows. That way you can really go in and see what it is you want to see instead of trying to search through all the programs to find what you want. The same way with Margaret Opio, her shows, just type in YouTube Voice Uganda Radio / Margaret, and it'll just pull up her programs so that you can just zone in on those. Hey, Zoe, we lost you there for a minute. Go ahead and finish with your introduction there that you were getting ready to.
Yeah, I was just saying that I have my Lugara program, this afternoon from 12 to 2 o'clock. And that I'm hoping many people will tune in because it's very critical that in the new Uganda, we begin to coexist and live together because we are equal partners in Uganda, everybody. And there's no second-class citizen in our new Uganda. And so, therefore, I was also telling the listeners that next week is going to be profound. And they should listen to the two chairs, Fadu, Dr. Sam Mukasa, and FUF, Professor Omara Otunu. And both of them will be answering lots of our questions. How we are going to lead Uganda in a different direction where everybody must participate, where everybody is going to develop, where everybody has a right to education, to health care, to all the human rights that they are born with. And I just can't wait to listen to those two gentlemen and even ask them questions next week. And so I was saying that next week is going to be very, very profound. And I've listened to these two men, and I know how they love Uganda to their heart. And I think we are very blessed to have people like that who understand the importance of having a democratic Uganda, where everybody should be able to live in our country, beloved country. I had meetings yesterday, and I was talking to people about, what the new Uganda would be like. Unbelievable. We have a lot of support, my sister and the listeners. We have a lot of support from everybody. They are really, really looking forward to coming to Uganda. When
in the new Uganda.
In the new Uganda. So I'm just excited, and I know that our country will regain its glory.
Yes.
And I'm just blessed to be a part of this. I feel truly, truly blessed.
And there are times when I wish I could just include a lot of people in who still have doubts, who still have fears about things because they're not able to be a part of the meetings. They're not able to be a part of the conversations where people are truly engaging in why is this happening? What do we do? How do you guys move forward? How can we help? I mean, if Ugandans really understood the support that they have out there from the community, I think it would overwhelm them, as it has us, And so I thank you so much for being a foot soldier and all the others who work in these organizations, because the voice of the Ugandan people may be silenced, but those of us who are working diligently behind the scenes to make sure that we open the eyes of the American people, that we open the eyes of the around the world, in the free world, that people really understand that just because things are quiet in Uganda doesn't mean that things are okay. It just means that they're all strategizing and trying to figure themselves out, because we have really become a threat to the new government. I mean, to the existing government, because they really don't know what to do with us. And there's nothing they can do with us other than move aside and allow the new generation of Ugandans to move forward and take back their country. You were not here last week, and I want to talk about this for a few minutes, and then we're going to go into this, Zoe, here on Freedom at Hand. During your show last week, I used that opportunity to talk about the African Summit. It was a heated discussion, and although it was very good, I am always glad when we have people with other opinions, because we all need to understand each other so that we can move forward. Because a lack of understanding is what has kept us where we're at today. So we want to invite that, and we want to listen, and we want to participate. Other Ugandans called in with their own views to share from their own hearts, which was very, very good, because I understand and I know, as an American born in this country, but who has traveled widely and been to Uganda on several occasions, people may still see me as a person that has no rights to how the Ugandans feel or how they want to move forward. But when you love a people, when you love a country, whenever you see that human rights issues are being abused, we can never turn a blind eye to that. One of President Clinton's statements that he makes often is that the only thing, if he had to look back on his presidency and say that what was it, if there was one thing that he wished he would not have turned a blind eye to or would have contributed to more, is the Rwanda genocide. Because he understands and he knows now that by not doing anything, what happened in that situation. So we can no longer sit by and allow these type of atrocities to happen. I don't care who it happens to. We just cannot sit by because some of us are privileged to be born and to live where we live. But it does not mean that that privilege gives us the right to turn our backs on the suffering of other people. I think we have to get on board and be a part of making a change in whatever way we can, and whatever way we're accepted into a society to do that. The Black Star News put an article out there because I talked about President Museveni and how he was welcomed or not welcomed there in Washington, D.C. I'm always glad to see validation come back, because it helps me to understand and know that I'm not the only one on a certain path, that Ugandans understand, see, and know this as well. One of the headlines in there this morning said that President Museveni was almost invisible during the U.S. African Leaders Summit. And it explained a lot of the issues and the reasons why, because most of Africa is moving forward. And those are the things that the African leaders had to share. Whereas Uganda cannot share any of those things because they're not moving forward. And the broken promises that this man has made time and time again over 30 years, the outside world is calling him on it and saying, look, you've had 30 years to correct all these things. Why should the people vote you in for 5 more years when they have nothing to show for what you've done over 30 years and that this is going to make a change? I want you to speak a little bit on that, because you were a part of a press gathering during that week that talked about the leaders that were coming into Washington, D.C., and you guys spoke on President Museveni and the reason why he should not have been allowed to come into that. And now we see from other things that are being released that others are feeling the same way. This man didn't participate in any of the panels. He didn't participate in any of the small talks and small conversations that went on about moving Africa forward for many reasons. Speak on that for a minute, if you will, Zoe.
Yeah, we had a wonderful, wonderful panel of 6 people. We had a press conference before the summit, the leaders' summit, and the purpose of this conference was to tell the world that Africa that needs strong institutions, not strong men, because if you remember in 2009, President Obama, in his speech in Ghana, he said that, you know what, Africa needs strong institutions and not strong men. And we were reminding the world that that's exactly what Africa needs. Because what are these strong men, like President Museveni, who have been in power for 30 years, what have they done for their countries? The majority, almost 80% of the people are still very, very poor, living in abject poverty, not even able sometimes to have a good meal once a day. They are living on under $1 a day. How can you say be proud to come to a summit and mingle with others when poverty is just killing your own populations? How and yet you, one person, is worth billions of dollars, which you have stashed away in banks abroad. How can you be proud to be a leader? And so we were telling the American people that your tax dollars, which are being given to these strong men like Museveni, is not helping the poor people whom you think you are donating your money to support. And so therefore you don't need to give that money to people like Museveni, who are just taking the money away and putting it in their bank accounts. And of course, like you said, we had people in the audience who came deliberately, and they were very angry that why should you be saying this? The truth of the matter for me is that I cannot support strong men when there are so many women who are becoming widows because of them. I cannot support strong men because there are so many children becoming orphans because of these men. I cannot support these strong men because you cannot have children on the streets. You remember Professor Mubiru talking about it, and it was in the media too. You have children on the streets, and you call yourself a president of a nation, and you are proud of it. How can you? Because in Uganda, before Museveni, we didn't have a lot of children on the streets. Is he proud to have a legacy where now you have so many children on the streets, and he talks of stability? You cannot, you cannot support strong men like Museveni because they are telling the public not even to raise their voices. And
I think Zoe might have dropped out again. I'm not sure if she's having problems in her area where she's at or what, and she'll come back in. And it's very, very interesting what she's sharing and what she's saying, because it's very, very true. You have, because of these strong leaders and these strong men, you have women who are becoming widows because their husbands are being killed. Their sons are coming up missing. Children whose parents are being killed. These children have nowhere to go. They have nothing. This is not a legacy that this man should be proud of, but one in which he needs to try to figure out what's happening and what's going on. And he's not trying to do that. It's very, very interesting because one of the things that the article said that was put out there by him, about him in the Black Star News, was that in the halls of Washington, where all of these committees were being formed and things were being done, he was like silent. He was almost invisible because he had nothing to contribute. He had nothing to contribute. I've got a call coming in, so let's go ahead and take this caller. Hey, caller, are you there? Come on in.
Hello, good morning. It's wonderful. This is Chuanuka Lawrence from New York.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fairly okay. I've been listening in, and I think Madame Zoe is right on the mark. One of the biggest problems that Museveni introduced to our society is this idea of a strong man. And I think we need to look very carefully at that notion and work tediously and step away from it. The idea of a strong man has wreaked havoc across the continent, not only in Uganda, but when it comes to the case of Uganda, you realize that we have been infectious, okay? I can say that Museveni's behavior is kind of a political Ebola that has engulfed the region because of this strong man mentality. The strong man owns the army, the strong man controls the economy, and everything else within the state apparatus. And it has ended up resulting into exporting violence across the Great Lakes region. So we have to curtail in the new Uganda that we aim to achieve, that we do away with this strong man mentality. And you look at the whole situation, there is no president who has ever ascended to power, including the first president of Uganda after independence, who has had as much goodwill as Museveni had in 1986. But he blatantly squandered all these opportunities. No other regime has received funding to the extent the regime of Museveni has received in Uganda. In the first 6 years of their stay in power, they received 4 times funding grants from outside the country than what had been received in all the previous 30 years of Uganda's independence. But all these monies are not seeing what they've done. It all boils down to one thing, the big money syndrome that has been eating into the fabric of Uganda. Those who are corrupt can only be prosecuted if the president says so. If he doesn't say so, it doesn't happen. This is one of the biggest problems we have. So as we envision a new Uganda, we envision in devolving power into the hands of the people, having a legislature that is separated from the executive, clearly having a judiciary that is independent, than now where we have a judiciary that acts as a political legal wing of the ruling party. So these are very fundamental issues that we need to address. And I want to step a little back and go back to what you were saying in regards to global citizenship. People who are inquiring whether you have why do you have the audacity to speak about Uganda? Humanity is a global citizenship. You cannot sit back and watch when one area is being destroyed. Let me give you an example. We have of late, in the last 45 years, seen the rise and the violence of hurricane on the eastern coast of the US. People, if you study what is happening, it all results from the fact that the forest covers in Africa are being cut down. Hence, the winds that come across the Atlantic are hotter, they push faster, and the victims are actually the people in eastern United States. So when bad things go on in one part of the world, we are all concerned. Yes. So for people like Brenda to be there and talk about Uganda and talk about Africa and talk about human rights, you cannot question them even for 1 minute, because this is an obligation. It's congenital. We are born to do this, to be compassionate about others. So we live in a global village. We cannot allow something careless to go on in one area and ignore it, because it's going to affect other areas. Look at the Ebola outbreak. From Liberia, it has now reached the whole world. Airlines are canceling. People are losing employments as far as in China. So we are a global village that must be concerned about each other. The other element that I want to pick up from some of what you've been mentioning, which I think was very important, is the idea of peace. That being quiet in Uganda, there being no demonstration on the streets that have been violently quashed, does not mean that there is peace. The silence of guns, the absence of screams, does not mean peace. That silence, that suicidal violence that goes on, which is internalized within the hearts of people, is very dangerous. That we need to keep people opening up, to keep people understanding that the silence is a forced silence. There is no peace in that kind of silence, because it's not a quietness that comes out of respect. It's a quietness that comes out of fear. And when people are fearful, you have to be very much worried of how they might respond when there is a very small catalyst. So those of us who care about the new Uganda, we need to get together, call upon all Ugandans, take the birth pains, and aim at birthing a new nation where people are not fearful of each other, fearful of their leaders, but respect their leaders and respect one another. If they keep quiet because they are respecting you, that's a wonderful thing. But in the current situation where they are keeping quiet because they are fearing, that's a very, very dangerous situation that we need to deal with, which rises back to the idea of a strong man who is unconstitutional, who is an institutional, but just an individual hand wielding the hammer of terror across the region. And if the people of the region can't speak to it within the region, then the people from outside have to look in and act on it. You can look anywhere. You can look in the Quran, you can look in the Bible, and you will see that foreigners have come and outsiders have come and have been able to rescue society. This is the time where that person whom you did not respect, that Samaritan at the well, that person, you need to get water from them. Join your hands and push forward, because this is the day, this is the moment. If we lose this opportunity, we are not only losing an opportunity, we are losing a nation and the generations to come. I will conclude my quick comments with an appeal that let's all come together. This is the time for us to join hands and clean our country for a better tomorrow and an everlasting peaceful future. Thank you so much always for your wonderful presentations. I appreciate your messages.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comments. And you know, a lot of what he's sharing there is absolutely correct. We are citizens of the world, all of us, And to think that what happens in one part of the country does not affect other parts of the country, we would sadly be mistaken, because if you look at the news today, there is so much going on around us that it affects all of us in one way or another. It affects all of us. We have to, at the end of the day, look into ourselves and see and take responsibility for the energy in which we bring into society. Those energies can be good and those energies can be bad. And we are all citizens of the world. The statement he just made is very profound and absolutely true. When you start destroying the woodland and the forests and the greenery there in Africa, where the winds blow the strongest and help to take away a lot of the impact of what could happen to the world starts to feel the impact of that. So when things like this start happening on a global issue, from a global standpoint, we're all responsible for each other at the end of the day. I'm going to go ahead and take a break here really quick, and then we're going to be back on with the show. We're having problems keeping Zoe online, so we need to figure out what's going on there. So give us just a few minutes. You're listening to Miss Brenda here on Freedom at Hand. We'll be back in just a moment.
This song is a dedication to all the Ugandans, wherever you may be, inside of the walls of Uganda or in the community of exile. Like unwanted children from the country that gave you birth, living amongst the free world. Rise up, my fellow Ugandans, as we fight against the dictatorship of the oppression of Museveni, for the rights of teachers, for the rights of government, for the rights of the justice system, trying to fight for the rights and the belief of the Ugandan people. Museveni has made a promise to Parliament of 150 million shillings to right the wrongs and to help them to make their lives whole again. Buying votes, buying the rights to rule the people for another 5 years in a dictatorship that has just destroyed Uganda to almost an unrecognizable state. What about the promises to the rest of the people that he's made? When will he make true on those things? Or do they not matter because they don't have a vote to keep him into office? I tell you, my fellow Ugandans, there's nothing free and fair about the election that's coming up when a sitting president can offer these type of monies and funds to a group of people to make sure that he holds his powerful position. Members of Parliament, it can happen to you. The same promises he made to the teachers who have gone without salary, some of them for 2 months. The same promises that he's made to other leaders and others who've tried to rule and stand up against him, only to fall by the hands of death, by torture, by house arrest, by whatever means he feels the need needs to be to keep them in control. We live in a time, my fellow Ugandans, where one man, one family, and one group feels the need to speak for all. Where land grabbing has gone on so much that they own pretty much all of the country. Which daily they sell pieces of the country off to the highest bidder to continue to keep money in this man's hand, to fund his wars, to fund his battles, to bribe the community, to keep himself in power in whatever way he can, leaving the Ugandan people with such a debt that they will wake up one day and Uganda will no longer belong to the people, but will be bought and sold off in bits and pieces to the highest bidder, wherever the money and wherever the funds need to come to keep this man in power. For the truth and the justice, for the helpless, we stand and we fight on behalf of the Ugandan people to bring back wholeness and completeness back to the Ugandan people. This is not a battle of arms, but a battle of spirit, a battle of souls and of the mind of the people of Uganda. The public management bill was put in place to keep us quiet. We must rise, we must stand together, we must find strength in one another to move forward on behalf of our beloved Uganda. It is a country that our fathers, our grandfathers, our mothers and our grandmothers fought and worked the land to make it a place in which we could live and have a life and take care of our families. Too many Ugandans are living in exile, in communities out in the free world, like unwanted children from the country that gave them birth. It's time for us to stand hand in hand and enter back into the country and take it back to make it great for all Ugandans, especially the youth of the country, who have an 80% unemployment rate. Time and time again, companies have tried to go into Uganda to work with the Ugandan government, but corruption has fallen at the hands of the Ugandan people time and time again. It takes from the mouth of the hungry. There is no medicine. The hospitals are falling apart. The roads are undrivable. The country has become unrecognizable at the hands of one man who sells the country off piece by piece, bit by bit, to the highest bidder, to continue to bid his war, to continue to fund the people who will vote him in and keep him in a position of power over all. The day has come, my fellow Ugandans. We must stand up. We must unite. We must.
Thank you so much, and welcome back to Freedom at Hand. I'm your host, Miss Brenda, here on Voice Uganda Radio. Zoe is still traveling, so for some reason we are having problems keeping a signal with her. She will come in and out as she can, and I will go ahead and go on with the show whenever she can connect with us. It will be great. It's interesting that in Washington, D.C., during the African Summit, most of the leaders that were there took the opportunity and took the time to meet with their people in the diaspora. Because one of the things they understand and know is the diaspora is a huge link to growth and prosperity, to opening the doors of communication, to directing the country in a positive direction. President Museveni did not meet with the diaspora community in Washington, D.C. A lot of people say it was out of fear. A lot of people say it was out of frustration. We don't know the reasons why he didn't do that. But every opportunity that he has to open the door with the diaspora community, he does not open those doors. And the world sees that. Zoe, comment on that for me, if you will. The fact that all the other African leaders felt the need in Washington, D.C. to meet with their diaspora community. Yet President Museveni did not meet with his diaspora community at all. Comment on that for me, if you will.
Absolutely, Ms. Brenda. I think I heard Lawrence speaking earlier of the earlier years of Museveni's rule. Museveni used it to meet with the diaspora, try to meet with the diaspora. But, I mean, when you are a dictator and you are in power for 30 years, what do you expect? You know that your popularity is gone, and you also know that you have made a lot of mistakes, and so therefore you're making a lot of enemies, and you start even fearing your own shadow. And so what would he tell the diaspora if he met the diaspora? He is scared. He has nothing to tell them about the country which he has destroyed completely. And, you know, somebody was like, it's even not just Museveni's 30 years. It's what he has done to that country. What has this guy done to that country? And so he couldn't even be asked to sit on a panel. And it was just like he wasn't in this conference at all.
He was invisible.
In this summit at all. And so he could not sit on a panel like the other leaders did, talking about what they were doing progressively in their countries. And again, for him, even to stand and proudly take that photo with the president of the United States and his wife, just to go and tell people that I took a photo with the Obamas. I mean, the real meat of the program was not just the photo. You know, if you watch, you see there's a typical, what can I call it? Way in which the Musevenis want to show if the United States is supporting them or not. You remember Museveni was in Commonwealth and he went to London, and when he was in London, they just restricted him in the Commonwealth, and he did not even meet with the Prime Minister of Britain. And when he was in Belgium, him and the Kagame just stayed in the hotel. They were too embarrassed to mix up with anybody. And so he comes to the US. Every other leader is so excited to meet their diaspora, because the diaspora is contributing a lot in their countries. And for him, he's too scared of his shadow and embarrassed even to go and talk to the diaspora, because he's scared to be asked all the questions, and he knows exactly that he wouldn't even be able to answer them. And so he could not meet with the diaspora. Instead, he could spend $600,000 of the Ugandan money, which could have built hospitals, roads, and schools, just to go and clean his image. Can you imagine what kind of leader this is? And yesterday, when I was, talking to, having my discussions and meeting, you have no idea. One guy just said, "What? 30 years? How can this guy be in power for so long and the country is in tatters?" And so you can understand, he was insignificant in DC. It was like he didn't even travel to the US for this summit. The only visibility he had was to take a photo snap to go for the dinner. Of course, I mean, everybody enjoys eating, right? That was the only opportunity where he was visible. Everything else during the summit, he was totally invisible and insignificant. And so it's just a shame for Ugandans. It's a pity, because we have a leader who could not stand up and be there, to tell about our beautiful country and everything that goes with it. And I believe in the new Uganda, we will be visible again.
Yes, because one of the things, you're exactly right. He was in a leadership summit, which the rest of the world did not feel he was a leader. And it is an embarrassment for him, because for all of these years, what are you fighting for? Why do you still want to be in the position of power when so much has been given to you? One of the things Lawrence just shared, out of all the sitting presidents since Uganda's independence, this individual, President Museveni, has received more money and more funding than any other president. Yet under all the other regimes and things that took place, the country was not in ruins. Uganda had an airline. Ugandans had jobs. Farmers and agriculture was growing rapidly.
The railway.
The railway was there. I mean, it's like Margaret Opio said, you can throw seeds up in the air, and wherever they land on the soil in Uganda, they'll grow, because that's how fertile the ground is. You had infrastructure. They called it the golden years. So when this man came into power, there were so many things that were running well. So out of all, if he is the sitting president, and out of the last 30 years, he's received more money than anyone else, why has the country gone backwards instead of forward? We understand it's because of corruption, so we're not going to debate that, because we know it's because of corruption. But this is the thing I'm saying. This man has received billions of dollars over 30 years, yet the country, only 20% of the country, if that much, has electricity. Sewer is still running through neighborhoods and running through the streets. Hospitals have no water. Hospitals have no doors. Hospitals have no windows. Bats are urinating in the hospitals. Babies are born and cleaned into this new world with water that is taken out of a lake or little pond area in the back that is infested already with all types of bacteria. And this is the water that you're using to clean up new children coming into the world. This man was invisible in Washington, D.C. because there is nothing that he can share that the rest of the world wants to hear. Now, one of the things we understand and know that he can say and tell the Ugandan people whatever he wants to tell them. But answering to the outside world is where he falls very, very short. And I would be surprised if he doesn't stop some of his traveling to the outside world because of the embarrassment that he's starting to feel being on the outside world. This man is not being embraced by anyone in any way whatsoever. No one's coming up to him, wanting to talk to him and have conversation about anything happening in Uganda. That is an embarrassment for a president when you're invited out and you're representing your country. One of the things that on Gwanga Majay, they were talking about one weekend was that we, the Ugandans, need to be the ambassadors of Uganda. We are the goodwill ambassadors of Uganda. And what that means in being goodwill ambassadors is that we have to start to have the conversations. We have to start to talk to people, allow people to know what's going on in the country, how we can move forward in the country, and how we can bring about change. Because, Zoe, you understand and you know that it has to start with us in order to get the rest of the world on board.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've seen that. I mean, as a foot soldier, I see that every day in the conversations I'm having with the different categories of people, whether it's the churches, whether it's political leaders, whether it is governments, whether it is, you just see the goodwill of the very many people who want to see the new Uganda. Because, look, everybody's like, when Museveni came to power, they were called, quote, the new crop of leaders, the new breed of leaders. What happened, 30 years later? Are you still going to be a new crop? Are you still going to be a new leader when you have created no change? You see, and so his slogan of no change is so true. Not that only him, there's no change, he should only stay in power. It's actually that there's even no change in the country. Nothing. Things have remained where they were and gone worse. Just, you said it, we had the Uganda Airlines dead. We had the railways and even passenger trains gone, dead. We had roads which now are full of potholes. And the new roads his government has actually constructed, within 1 year, you see huge potholes, because instead of 5 inches of the concrete, they only put 1 inch or 2 inches. The 3 inches is eaten, corruption. The money is stacked away. We had beautiful hospitals which were built, new hospitals on top of the old ones. Everything is just gone. And so what kind of country is this? And no wonder Museveni says no change, no change. You cannot have change if you have a corrupt leader like this, who does not even see anything beyond his belly and the one of his family. And so it is really, he was very insignificant. And trust me, Miss Brenda, he will still travel because he wants to pretend and tell the Ugandans that when he travels, that he's appreciated. And so when he takes those photos with the presidents, like he does during dinner, then he will parade those kind of photos in newspapers in Uganda. Oh, don't listen to them because I am appreciated by these leaders. If I was not, how could I take a photo with them? And that is just to try and blindfold the Ugandans. And the conversation starts with us, and we are already doing that. And we are going to be more aggressive in the conversation, and we are going to talk. And for us, he can go violent, but we will talk. Trust me, we are foot soldiers, and before he knows it, you know those big rats at home, they go underneath in your foundation. Before you know it, your house is falling on you.
Wow. I haven't had the opportunity to meet those guys yet.
They are called Mbabu, or they are called, they're called Mbabu, and the other people who do that are the rabbits. When you have rabbits, you rear rabbits, make sure that you check your the foundation of your house all the time. And so we are doing our job as food soldiers.
Yes, and let me tell you that things in the wild need to stay in the wild. They don't belong in the society of people. That tells me a lot about the ruins of the country, because those things should not be attracted inwardly. They should stay outwardly. So there's so much exposure of people's lives. They have no doors, they have no windows, they have nothing to protect themselves. And so you have the very elements of things that should be in the wild that are taking over the country. And that is just incredible to me. Let's just shift gears here for a second, Zoe. We know that this president has been giving out a lot of money to Parliament, millions of shillings to Parliament, to continue to show favoritism, to continue to vote him in, and continue to allow him to rule. We've all said it, and it is very true, that someone somewhere is keeping this man in power. And we understand and we see this with Parliament, with the things that are happening. In a new Uganda, I feel that these people are going to have to answer for those illegal monies that they're taking, because that is considered bribery in any country. It's illegal. You go to jail. There's prison time. We have a caller coming in, so let me go ahead and take this caller real quick. Hey, caller, come on in, and welcome to Voice Uganda Radio.
Yes, good morning, Miss Brenda, and good morning, Honorable Zoe Bakoko. What a wonderful program. And I also thank the previous program that came at 7, Miss Margaret. I think she did a wonderful job, and we thank you to be part of Voice of Uganda Radio. My call today is to inform the people, our listeners, that what we have at hand in Uganda is something that any Ugandan is responsible to make sure that the situation is reversed, that we sanitize our nation. You've seen the pictures of Kampala, the city of Kampala City. After it rained, you've seen a lot of people coming out with canoe on the streets of Uganda, streets of Kampala, trying to navigate their way. And you could not see anything. Cars, everything is just, submerged in water. This is the city. And here we see a man coming here to the United States wearing suits, making sure or pretending, telling the rest of the world that everything in Uganda is nice and dandy. Fellow Ugandans, our country needs to be sanitized, and it's time that we took action. Yesterday, we are off the air, and we apologize for our listeners who did not get a chance, or who were interrupted, or who were ready to listen to Voice of Uganda, but we are off the line for a good cause. I mean, off the air for a good cause. Yesterday, someone brought the idea to my attention on how Museveni has managed to rule Uganda this long, to fool Uganda this long, and he's at it again. As we mentioned previously, Museveni had sent 300 UPDF soldiers to Makele to take a crash course in agriculture. As you understand, Museveni has said publicly that he's going to put the NADS program in the hands of the military. And yes, he ordered Makele College of Agriculture to give these UPDF members a chance to learn agriculture, perhaps within a week or so. Fellow Ugandans, what does that tell you about the man who's ruling Uganda? We understand that the college, or the Makele College, has a full college where they award PhDs, BS degrees in agriculture. We have so many people who have graduated in the business of agriculture, and they're riding borders. We have so many people who have got PhD in agriculture, and Museveni told them to go home and rear goats. And here we are, Museveni is going to put his army that are already employed and put them to be paid again, while these people who are educated, our fellow Ugandans who are educated, they are on the streets of Uganda and using canoe to navigate their way. Museveni has used this system to indoctrinate Ugandans through DRC, and now, from my friend who informed me this, Museveni is doing it again. This time, he's using the police to go in the villages and indoctrinate and scare these people in the villages to support him and pretend to say that he is going to put them to work for agriculture and help the people in the village. Museveni's intention is to make sure that these people in the village, deep in the villages, are intimidated and ready to keep on supporting this man. We have, if Museveni was serious about agriculture, revitalizing agriculture in Uganda, he should look at those people who have genuine education, who have got degrees, PhD in this field. He should be calling them to the State House and tell them that we need to get together and find a way to revitalize our agriculture industry system. But what did he do? He's gone to the people. Perhaps these people have no degrees. We have a problem in Uganda, and the problem must be met head on, not by only me, but you as a Ugandan who's listening to me. I sincerely thank you so much for the program. I sincerely thank Voice of Uganda Radio for the program and the education we are giving to our people. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. It's true, Zoe. I mean, we have to have a conversation. You cannot take educated people who have struggled to get themselves through the universities to a higher system of education and then tell those people to simply go and rear goats. This is a prime example of why he didn't want to meet Ugandans in the diaspora, because these are educated people who are going to call him out on a lot of the different things that are happening there in the country. I mean, speak to that. How can you tell people who have spent timeless effort in educating themselves to now go and rear goats? Is that what you think of your people? Is that what you think of the education and the systems that they've gone through to better themselves?
I mean, it's just so amazing how this guy has tricked everybody, and now the same games he has played are coming back to haunt him. And so he is so, as I said, he's so scared even of his own ghost and shadow that he understands that he cannot answer questions from anybody. And so for him to tell the young people to go home and rear goats, what goats? There are no goats to rear. So what goats is he talking about? He thinks everybody is like him who has opportunity to dip their fingers into the national coffers or the bank or all the donor money which is coming to the country, and he can spend it at will. Whether he wants to improve his image, he can dish out $600,000 to one farm to clean his image. He can dish out, £1 million. To a few years ago, he dished out that money into a farm in England to try and clean his image. He has been paying another farm $500,000.
Well, wait a minute. His image isn't clean. So what are the people doing with the money? Because we still see him as we have always seen him.
Of course, now we are talking about it. People were not talking about it, and that's why this conversation is very, very important. Because even if he gives this money to these firms who are going to try and brand his image and make it look better, actually it's looking even worse, and it's making him worse, because the fact that he can just take that money and spend it to clean his personal image when actually it is already awful. And instead of using this money to help Ugandans build hospitals, build roads and infrastructure, it's just so horrific.
Well, I tell you this,
horrific.
I know, and I tell you this, in a new Uganda, those who are taking bribes and taking money from him, they're going to have to, they'll have their day in court, because it's stealing. It's embezzling money from the Ugandan people. In any other country, that is stealing. and people go to jail for such things, which will be the same thing that would happen to him. So let's honestly have the conversation about the MPs and the law that they're breaking. They may not, they're pardoned by him, and he's not going to let them go to jail. He's not going to allow anything to happen to them. He's just going to continue to pay them to keep him in power. But in a new Uganda, those people...
He's bribing these MPs because he knows that he still has his sole candidacy coming along, and it is getting a lot of resistance, not only from the villages, but also from the public. And people are upset that he wants to be the sole candidate, and now the MPs, some of the MPs were doubting, and you heard it was a divided house in Parliament where people were like, this is not right. And then these MPs who are suffocating with a lot of debts, personal debts, he is giving them all this money so that they will be silenced. He's actually zipping their mouth so that when that comes in Parliament, everybody is going to be quiet. He has given you money. Now you can't stand up and say, oh no, he cannot be the sole candidate. He should not be the sole candidate. Now he has silenced them. It is corruption, it is bribery, it is wrong.
And Zoe, in a new Uganda, those people are going to have to answer for all that money that they took, because there is no way we are going to allow.
And they better know that.
And they better know that, exactly. We got another call. Let me go ahead and let this person come on in. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Miss Brenda.
How are you today, Dorothy?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Good morning, Miss Dorothy.
Oh, Honorable Bakoko, how are you? How are you? I am so proud. I'm so proud of you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so proud. I cannot explain.
Dorothy, go ahead and comment on what we were just talking about. The fact that the MPs are going to have to answer for all this money they're taking in a new Uganda, because as far as we see them, let us be the one to educate them. They're breaking the law on the Ugandan people. They're breaking the law by taking this money and taking these bribes.
Mr. Museveni identified those people who can really help him stay in power. So we have seen the police, which we don't have the police, but literally it is the army. We have the parliament, which really does not exist for any reason or have any interest in the Ugandan people. If some people have, of course, they have been blindfolded with this money, the bribes. The taxpayers' money does not go intended to go, but to bribe. So these MPs, of course, we have talked about this. They come to the street when they have intentions of going to the parliament. They protest, they walk, they and people follow them. They stand up for the tortures and everything. Museveni realizes, oh, there's something here. So they go through the parliament, then they forget for those who send them in. Because why? Ugandans are poor. So in order somebody to educate their children to eat, to live a decent life, they have to end up in the parliament so that they can grab. Somebody, I think it was Honorable Bakoko, who said that not everybody has a chance to rear goats. Not everybody has a chance to dip their hands into the national coffers and steal all the taxpayers' money and the aid sent to Uganda. So what are these MPs done is to make sure they end up in the parliament to do also get something for themselves and to feed their families. But that is a wrong way to do that. That is a wrong way because they know not every Ugandan is going to end up in the parliament. So that is an ethical question. That's why I will lose it. Everybody for himself, and God for us all, no more. That is a wrong way to look at things. And for how long that this going to go on? Okay, somehow what goes around comes around. It's going to get to you. So that is not something to look up for. We need to stand up. It is not easy, Miss Brenda and Honorable Bakoko, to stand for justice. As we all know that, it is not easy. but it has to be done. And we all know that when you stand for the truth, you can be tortured, you can be intimidated, you can be killed, but at the end of the day, you win. So we will not stand to be intimidated. We will not fear. We have to stand up for the absolute truth and responsibility for our country. So they will have broken now.
Yeah. Yeah, because exactly, even in this country, those of you who know Jesse Jackson, his son was a member of a government here, and they misappropriated funds that they were given. He misappropriated funds that were given for his campaign, and they started spending and living this lifestyle that was not what the money was given by the people who donated money for them to have. The man is in prison now. I mean, he is in federal prison, but he's in prison because you do not take monies that are not yours for that purpose or reason. What I have in life, I've worked for. What has been given to me on a contribution side, that money has to be used and valued for that purpose in which it was given. And for some reason, this man has made the members of parliament think that it's okay to take this money and it's okay to do these things. But what we're here to say is, according to the law, and I know the people of parliament understand the law and the rules of the country,
they will be held. The law.
Yeah, but they will be held liable for those funds in which they are just. I don't understand how they can look down on the Ugandan people and the way their lives are crumbling apart when they are a part of why those lives are crumbling and falling apart. I mean, wouldn't you say that, Zoe? I mean, of what's happening.
The thing is, the law is made by Parliament. All the laws are made by Parliament, and so they cannot be above the law. They make those laws, and those laws are supposed to be, to guide Ugandans, and it includes them. And so, therefore, they cannot think that they are above the law, number one. Number two, it's just so unfortunate because the people who elect them and put them in those positions and trust them with leadership actually are the ones, just as you have said, in miserable, poor situations in the villages. And the money that could even improve their status, the president is just dishing it around, bribing parliament, giving it to the police to brutally beat up people, and then giving it to firms abroad to try and rebrand him, and the rest he puts in his own bank accounts. And so Ugandans just take the crumbs, and it is their money, it's their taxes. That is the very unfortunate situation. It's their money, it's their taxes, they are poor, they are working their backs, and this money they are paying in taxes, and this president is just spending it lavishly as he wants, and the poor people are in miserable situation. It is a very unfortunate thing, and this conversation must go on, and people must stand up and challenge. And that's why for us in the new Uganda, we are going to ensure that resources go to improve the lives of Ugandans and not to be spent in the way this president is spending it. It's not even worth being called president.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Dorothy, answer this for me. I was on a group panel and we were talking about the situation of the unemployment of the youth there in Uganda. And we were talking about companies that are lining up and ready to go in and work in Uganda because they understand that there is a lot to develop and a lot to move forward in that country. And someone did it on calculations on paper, and they said that, within less than 2 years, they could put 50% of the country back to work. 50% of the country, that's a lot of jobs. And that they also said that this government has the same ability to do that. They're just ignoring it all because if it doesn't filter their pockets, they're not interested in what it does for the Ugandan people. Mm-hmm. An example being, they hire some of these companies to come in who get these contracts to do things, but these people are also allowed to bring their own people into work instead of employing the people of Uganda. Speak on that for me, Dorothy, because they're absolutely, this individual this is all just down on paper. This individual understands and realizes this because a lot of what is there for the Ugandan people, the people who are getting the contracts are resourcing their own people to come in and get the jobs. Comment on that for me, Dorothy, if you will, and then we'll go to Zoe.
Oh, thank you so much, Miss Brenda. Now, I don't know where to start.
I know.
But let me do this. Earlier, Mr. Nseleko mentioned something that once in a while you think you've had it all, but then somebody will come and mention something, Honorable Zoe and Miss Brenda, that it will take you straight to tears. Didn't Mr. Nseleko say that in the first 6 years of Mr. Museveni's government, they received the grants and donations that was 4 times more than all the previous governments. I mean Mutesa, I mean Obote, I mean Amin, I mean Dule, name them all. The first 6 years of President Museveni's governance in Uganda, they received that much money. You understand? It was 4 times more than all the previous governments had done. But I see, as bad as he was, he built roads, okay? He built embassies outside of Uganda that now Museveni is celebrating to sell. The Uganda Airway was there. The railway was there. Corporations was there. Jinja was like morning, day, night. People were employed. We had industries. What can I say? UTC was there. How did those people, was in power for 8 years, 9, how many or both the 2 times together? Kabaka the golden period of Uganda, was it 2 years? Yes, Brenda. But they did it.
I understand, yeah.
They did it because they had interest at heart for Ugandan people. Was bad, he killed. Obote was bad, he killed. But they had a heart for Uganda. That's what makes the difference. And the time they stayed in power, Museveni has done it also more than 4 times. What does this man have to explain for himself? Except that they come with hatred, malice, and greed, gluttony to take everything. Okay? Their aim, you get all the 10-point program, Mrs. Zoe, and put them upside down. That was their agenda. It was the opposite. And they have managed to do so. When we talk about the coffee marketing board, Ms. Brenda talked about the investors who are celebrating Microsoft. We had people here who said Uganda had good coffee. The people of Uganda work so hard to grow coffee. They wanted to bring modern machines how to dry coffee in no time. To sell it at international market with the highest price. Why did Museveni stand in the way? First of all, they ask so much money in bribes for themselves. He will say for your company to come to Uganda, I need $20 million. Okay? Then that way it is done. This is America. They have somewhere else to invest. Okay? The idea is, Miss Brenda, Microsoft putting 50% of Uganda Ugandans to work is not a problem. But the government is not interested in Miss Brenda because you can imagine they have to control the economy. If there is a business in Uganda, they have to have shares in it so that they know where the cash flow. Otherwise, that's why the Ugandan people who had worked so hard and supported this man to come to power in the Bush War, he turned back and killed them. That's why we know market. That's why every market in Uganda, they have to be gashed to fire. The man is so certain that if Ugandans have money, they're going to overthrow his government. This is the idea, Miss Brenda. That's why the Ugandans are so poor. That's why you cannot have jobs. That's why we cannot have companies come in. You can imagine the Ugandan coffee goes to Rwanda, and Rwanda, Kagame and Museveni get the top dollar, while the farmer get out with nothing. When they come, they destroy the coffee, and they convince the people to grow vanilla. Ugandans are hardworking. They get up with all their force and might. The Ugandans grew vanilla. Vanilla was expensive. When Museveni realized that the Ugandans are going to be getting a lot of money from vanilla, what did he do? He banned the people from Kenya and outside the world to come to buy vanilla in Uganda. What is it all about? It is about power. It is about greed. It is about to take. Don't tell people to go rear goats. You have taken their land. They have nowhere to rear those goats. You have taken everything that belongs to them. Yes, Miss Brenda, it is possible to put even 90% of Ugandans back to work in a very short period of time. If we all got up and realized the dream and we have a need, Miss Margaret said, we need to stand up. We need to be the pioneers of Uganda and do the right thing. Miss Samsana said it. We need to centralize our country and go back to the way things were supposed to be. If those presidents before did it with a very little amount of money, their focus was on Uganda, their mind was on Uganda, and they did it with very little money. What about too much money? You have swindled all our natural resources on the top of the aid that Miss Brenda. I don't know where to start and where to stop. I think that will give you some light. Museveni knows when the Ugandan children are so poor. Can you imagine these Chinese countries, they bring their own people to work?
They bring their own workers.
Why should it be the oil company? Why should it be the citizens of Uganda to get the jobs first hand? Museveni is so scared that if Ugandans have money, they're going to overthrow his government. The true children of Uganda, you have to spend a day looking for what to eat, looking for that one meal to make sure you forget about Museveni. But I tell you, my fellow Ugandans, you stand up and show responsibility. Our grandparents did it, and it is on us to do right for Uganda. Thank you so much, Miss Brenda.
I know, and I'm going to go to Zoe here, but let me just say this really quick to the Ugandans in the diaspora that are listening, to the Africans throughout the continent of Africa that's listening. The continent of Africa is massive, and the world knows it. Uganda is a jewel that is sitting in the middle of it all. One of the things that this individual said, and Zoe, I want you to comment on this, because this is what we're all about. This is what the Federal Alliance of Democracy and Development in Uganda, and this is what Freedom and Unity Front is all about. We are not about the power of that seat. We are about giving the power back to the people so Uganda works. Now, this is one of the things that this individual said, and Zoe, you could probably appreciate this, and I want you to comment on this. We need to make sure in educating the farmers and because education is going to be the biggest key when we go back in. And I don't mean sending everybody back to college. I mean having forums, bringing the people forward, teaching them how. We will set up workshops that when they are growing their crops and their crops are still in the ground, growing, we are going to show them how to go to the internet and find out what is the best value that they should be getting for what they're growing, that they can sell their crops for in Uganda, so that when it leaves Uganda, it still makes a lot of money on the fair market exchange. But the farmer in Uganda gets the value of what he is doing for his crops. He can no longer have somebody drive by in a truck and say, give me all those bananas and I'll give you 100 shillings. No, we're going to teach them how you come to us. We go out and look for the best value, and those people have to come in and pay those farmers what those farmers are worth for what they have grown. This is how we start to filter back into the economy, help the people to understand and educate them. Even those who are illiterate and never went to college, we will still teach them how to get the best value for what they have grown. Go ahead, Zoe, and speak on that, because this is what we're talking about in Uganda.
Miss Brenda and listeners, I think we all know what the value of Ugandan coffee was. I mean, during Idi Amin's rule, of course, there was an economic sanctions against Uganda by the free world and the Western world. But Idi Amin was able to sell the Ugandan coffee through Gaddafi and get the hard dollars. And that's how, like Ms. Dorothy just said now, he bought all these buildings for the Ugandan embassies abroad. I mean, if he was Museveni, he would have taken that money and stolen all of it. But he didn't. And that money came from Uganda's coffee. Uganda has one of the best coffees in the world. And the other, and now that is all gone, because the Coffee Marketing Board is dead. Dead, as in dead, and there's nothing. And Museveni deliberately sold it off and ruined it. Why did he do it? So that he could disempower the coffee growers, who are mostly in the central region and in the eastern region and partly in northern region in West Nile. And the purpose, as Ms. Dorothy was saying, is to ensure that he has the financial and economic monopoly, because a financially independent society is not going to beg from you. And that's why Museveni can afford to run around with sacks of money and brown envelopes and go around dangling it in front of the farmers whom he has totally disempowered. And now they must look at him. You have seen a photo where there's a man, I think one of the leaders from one of the districts in central Uganda, kneeling down and receiving an envelope from Museveni. It is just unbelievable when you look at that photo. I will send it to you, Miss Brenda, today. And then we had the best cotton. You know that the yarn, the Ugandan cotton, the yarn was, I think, the second best in the world. The first one is the Egyptian cotton, and the second one was Uganda. And that's you know that cotton is just not only for making clothes, but it is also the yarn from Uganda was one of those which is used in the industry of making arms, you know. And so the Ugandan yarn was the second best in the world. And Museveni made sure that the cotton industry in Uganda is dead, like the coffee. And so the farmers who were making money out of cotton, they can no longer make money out of cotton. The tea industry is gone. And so he can only promote things where he is going to directly benefit. Like the ones he can control, the sugar industry. He can control that through the people who are doing it, so that the farm, and then they steal all the money which is put in National Social Security Fund. The poor farmers still don't get it. Trust me, Miss Brenda, Museveni has disempowered Ugandans in 30 years and made the farmers who are supposed to be rich paupers, so that he can rule them. And I think it is time for people to get back their rights.
Exactly.
Museveni, militarily, he has the monopoly.
Yes.
In terms of the finances and money, he has the monopoly. And now he wants to get the education monopoly by sending their children to these universities abroad, particularly now to study and come and work back in the oil industry. What kind of control freak is that?
And Zoe, you know, through the programs here in the United States of America, through Europe and all the free world, these Ugandan students, we can get them out in universities to study and bring those knowledges back into Uganda to better the country.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Let me tell you, my fellow Ugandans and those of you in the diaspora, the dream that we have for Uganda is bigger than anything you can imagine, and we all have to participate and be a part of it. It's not just for a few. It's not just for an organization or a group. It's for all of us. This is a thing I need to share. Like Zoe was just talking about with the farmers, and Dorothy hit on so compassionately there just a few minutes ago. When you put farmers back to work and you teach them, and like Zoe is saying, the cotton that is grown there is the second best in the world. The tea, there's still a high demand for it. The coffee, there's still a high demand. There's a high demand for everything that is produced there in Uganda. When you put those farmers back to work, and when they start to bring in money and you start to filter into them small loans to make their businesses even better, they start to put the rest of the Ugandan community to work. And we're talking about stretching across the lines, the north, the south, the east, the west, and the central. Wherever you need Ugandans and you can hire them, let's start uniting the people back together. You don't just hire people in your region. You hire people that are qualified throughout all of Uganda. to make everyone proud of what is happening, to make everybody proud of what's going on. You don't isolate certain sections and allow those people to be the ones to dominate. You teach those people that what you have been given must be shared in all of Uganda, because you're not the only one with all the answers. We have another caller coming in, and we're going to go ahead and take this call. Caller, welcome to Freedom at Hand here on Voice Uganda Radio.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brenda. This is Mobirum Soke.
Good morning.
Good morning, Professor. I think you started off the program with a very interesting concept of the strong man. Mm-hmm. And I thought maybe I should reflect a little bit on this concept and what it means. The origin, when we look at the origin of this concept, is we probably understand it more from a historical perspective. The origin is the Cold War. The superpowers were interested in certain spheres of influence. That is, they were interested in ensuring that certain geopolitical areas remained under their control. So democratic government could not ensure that a certain geopolitical area was under the control or the influence of a specific superpower in the third world. That is why, and the concept of a strong man became very important. The need of a strong man to ensure that the interests of the superpower were maintained overrode the interests of the people in these particular areas. The examples are many, but I'll mention a few. Mobutu, for example, in Zaire or Congo, was a strong man. Mengistu or Moi in Kenya was a strong man, and so was Pinochet in Chile. So this was a global phenomenon of strong men. They were not just African. There were a few in Asia too. And those were the strong men for the United States. And the Soviet Union too had strong men like Mengistu in Ethiopia. He had Mugabe in Zimbabwe, and many others in different areas. The important thing here is that the concept of a strong man was incompatible with democracy. A strong man was like a servant of a superpower, and he had to be a dictator in order to continue to serve the interests of the superpower. So democratization, in that respect, we can understand what democratization is all about. It is incompatible with the concept of a strong man. It is, in fact, democratization, you can say, is aimed at destroying that very element, political element of a strong man. Because, as Zoe pointed out earlier, the strong men, their policies are not for the people. They don't serve the people. These policies serve their interests, personal interests. So a strong man is very dangerous, actually. He's like a political parasite. That is one aspect of it. He is one aspect of manifestation of political corruption, both internally and externally, when you look at it. So internationally, strong men used to serve the interests of the foreign powers. Domestically, strong men were they served their own interest. They didn't care about what the people thought or wanted or needed. So democracy, however, is achieved when the people become sovereign. That means that when the people are ultimately, they are the source of political authority. The people cannot be political, the source of political authority when a strong man exists, and that's the paradox right there. So, when the people determine who their leaders are in a free and fair electoral process, the strong man concept is destroyed, and in that respect, it is democratization. It destroys the strong man. Now, when we look at FADU and FAF, that's exactly what we are trying to do, to destroy this concept of a strong man in Uganda, in order to protect the human rights, because the human rights in Uganda are violated so much, not just the political and the civil rights, but economic rights, social rights, rights like to health, rights to education, or other aspects. When you have street children, that's a violation of human rights. People may not see it that way, but that's exactly what it means. So in Uganda, the NRM, from its inception, was a regime headed by a strong man wearing a military uniform, who acquired power through the gun, the barrel of the gun, and who was not interested in sharing power and serving the people. He was not interested in those things. He was interested in controlling the political process by any means possible to serve his own interests. Hence the corruption we have in Uganda. The Museveni did this by creating the NRM, and what the NRM was based on what they called the RC system, the Resistance Council system, from down in the village all the way up to the National Resistance Council, which was the parliament. There is one person who controlled the entire system. That was Museveni. And as a result, although Museveni would not reflect the traditional, the original concept of a strong man, in the sense of the Mobutu and the Moi and Pinochet, but he was a strong man in the sense that he controlled the political process, and he continues to do so. He did so by establishing this RC system, the Resistance Council structure. Even after abolishing this system in 2005, the control, the process is controlled by Museveni and the NRM. For example, you are aware of POMA, the Public Order Management Act. The only reason for that act is to control the political process and to prohibit the people from enjoying their rights. The people cannot be sovereign, they cannot be the ultimate source of political authority when POMA exists. And so when you hear about this military being sent to the university to be trained to become agricultural,
extension workers.
Yeah, extension workers. That is just designed for political control. It's not for democratizing Uganda, and this is the sad part of it. And it is done deceptively and in a way that many people may not even fully understand, let alone our foreign partners. But that's exactly what it is. And it's the perpetuation of Museveni as a strong man. And unfortunately, we have to fight this strong man domestically within Uganda. in order to democratize the system. So my reflections on the concept of a strong man was intended to highlight its broader aspect and the fact that it actually continues to exist in Uganda, even though the original aspect of it, of superpower rivalry, has disappeared. But it continues, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we fight so that the people become the ultimate social political authority and they become sovereign. So those are my few remarks or reflections on the concept of the strong man. And actually, a strong man is not strong at all. He's very weak. That's why he needs the laws to control the people and the military to go into the villages as extension workers in order to control them. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll hang up and let the others participate.
Thank you so much, Professor. It's always a pleasure to have you be a part of the program. Ladies, we're winding down to closing out the program, so I'll let Dorothy go ahead and have the first 5 minutes. We'll go to you, Zoe, and then I'll close out the program. Dorothy, go ahead with your closing comments and anything you want to comment on what the professor had to share.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda. All our listeners, whenever you are, all the callers, Professor Mbiru, we are so thankful for bringing that topic to reflect about it again. The strong man, was it President Obama? I think he was giving a speech. Was it Ghana? I might be wrong on that. Where he said that Africa does no longer need its stronger leaders. And what are the stronger leaders? What do they stand for? What is their interest? You hold the gun. People are dying over landslides. You show up with the AK-47. Seriously, I don't understand the mentality of a strong man. Honorable Zoe Bakoko explained it. The strong man who have created so many orphans because the fathers are killed. Just an intentional thinking that that man must be intending to be president. He's maybe wanna be take such a big job in the government, and I don't agree with him. In that regard, you kill him. We have lost so much of our people on the hands of the strong man, Museveni, who is no longer really a strong man because, as the professor said, if he was really strong, Honorable Zoe, Miss Brenda and all our listeners, a strong man, why does he spend millions and millions of dollars taking the bread from the Ugandan people to furnish, to clear his image? I mean, he's strong. So what is that all for? Why is a stronger man has to hang on to the army and the police to keep him in power? Why is the stronger man have to bribe the MPs, give them brown envelopes, and give them a lot of money, and tell them not to put them on their bank account? Where is the strength? Why would the strong man do that? Why would the strong man buy votes? Why would the strong man walk with the sacks of money? Where is his strength, my fellow Ugandans? Can we start to read between the lines? Where is the real power is? Museveni can pretend to be as strong as he wants to be when we let him. When we choose corruption. When we choose to help him to stay in power, because he cannot do it alone. Museveni can be strong when we choose to work with him and support him and forget our fellow neighbors, brothers and sisters of blood, ethnic groups, where we share the country, and we decide to be selfish. And we decide to look for our own stomachs, and we forget what matters the most. Uganda is big for all of us. Uganda is rich in people, natural resources. Ugandans are smart all over. So, it is our responsibility to do the right thing. We are the majority. We have rights. We have responsibility. Museveni cannot be strong, him alone. I am begging for all of my fellow Ugandans and those friends of ours who have worked so hard to make Museveni strong, please to look into their hearts and reflect. What is the right thing to do? What is the right thing for Uganda? Because it has been 30 years down the road. The man hasn't shown anything. He had the opportunity to have all the monies. He had the opportunity to be in power for 30 years. What has he done? What he hasn't done with all that money and all this time on his hand, he will never do. Let us be good and compassionate. Not in words. Not in words, my fellow Ugandans, not in words anymore. But we have to show it in action. We stand up for Uganda and for one another. This idea of what do I get out of it? If good people stand up to do good for their country, and they volunteer and they sacrifice everything they have, then you pin them down. Oh, why are they screaming? Why are they doing it? You think for nothing? They must be getting something. What position are you going to be given? We need to drop all that nonsense, come together, and stand up for Uganda. Miss Brenda, that friend of yours who told you that in no time they can put 50% of Uganda back to work, I strongly believe they can do 100% or 90% within no time. We have all the gifts, and we can do it. And let us stand up for the new Uganda and the love for the brother and the neighbor and one another and for the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. We'll go ahead and yield time over to the Honorable Zoe Bakoko.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brenda. Thank you, Professor Mubiru. Thank you, Dorothy. I think we've had a wonderful program. Mm-hmm. And I just feel truly blessed to be part of this movement, which is going to open doors to a new Uganda, because we don't need strong men. We need strong institutions, and absolutely true. We need the structures to be rebuilt. We need to revamp our agricultural industry. Uganda has a lot of fertile land, and I think we could be exporting a lot of food abroad. And I know our partners are willing to do that in the new Uganda. Professor just spoke about mentioned like 5 strong men. He mentioned Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire. He mentioned Mengistu of Ethiopia. He mentioned Moi of Kenya and Pinochet and Mugabe. Of all these, the only person who is in power still is President Mugabe of Zimbabwe. And so where are these strong men today? So for me, that is what gives me comfort, that even if Museveni thinks he can rule Ugandans, he's not a leader. He can rule Ugandans with an iron fist. Even if he thinks that he will replace the extension workers, agricultural extension workers with the military, even if he destroys community development workers, because we don't have them anymore. And those were the people who used to educate and do the social mobilization. Educate the farmers, talk to the families about health, and encourage families to send their children to school. Even if he destroys everything, My comfort is that how strong he may be, he will not be there forever. And one day he will leave the stage like the Mobutus of this world, the Mengistus of this world, the Pinochets of this world. Where are they today? That gives me comfort. And I know that FADU and FUF are going to work hand in hand with their allies, Miss Brenda. Just like you said, we have people who are so very willing to invest in Uganda and willing to open doors for employment, willing to open doors to empower Ugandans so that they can be financially independent and stable. Unlike Museveni, who is disempowering everybody in Uganda, the population, and stealing from them. I know for a fact, having worked with you, Miss Brenda, and continuing to work with you and our brothers, that Uganda has a very bright future, a very bright future. And we are going to ensure that this scenario of strong men will never exist in Uganda again. We are going to give the power back to the Ugandans. And we will not have strong men who rape Ugandans with their finances, take away all their money, rape them, beating them up. We will never have that in Uganda again. And how comforting is that? That our grandchildren are going to see what you call real peace, not militarizing the country up to the village level. How comforting is that? We used to never see military men, but now in Uganda, seeing a military man in uniform with the AK-47 or with the machine gun on his shoulder is now a common occurrence. And this was something when I was growing up you would never see. Even during Idi Amin's rule, the army were still living in the barracks, not all over the place like Museveni has done. And so his control, he is a control freak, but he thinks that he will control Ugandans forever. But we are the foot soldiers, and we are going to continue to educate Ugandans. Thank you, Ms. Brenda, for giving me back my voice. Thank you, Professor Ami, the chair of FUF, for giving me my voice. Thank you, Dr. Sam of FADU, for giving me my voice. And Ugandans, come out, let's join hands and free our country.
Thank you so much, Zoe, for those compassionate words from you and both Dorothy. Let me say this in closing out the program. President Museveni is something that was right that went very, very wrong. And it went very wrong very quickly, because 30 years can come and go very, very quickly. When you come to the table with a closed mind, nothing can be accomplished. Because when you think you already know everything, your mind is closed when you go before others, and you will never have an open mind as to anything that anyone else has to say if it does not have anything to do with your own interests. FUF and FADU will never, ever work with or sign on with any other organization that puts a strong man first, that puts the power of that chair first before the people of Uganda. It is not who we are. It is not what we're fighting for. The people of Uganda want their country back, and that is what we are trying to do, is to help them do that. When you talk about the military in Uganda, and Zoe just talking about a generation of children that will grow up with no military people on the streets, and that not being the way of governing the people, when in the new Uganda we see the military fighting for the interests of our partners and our allies, not the Ugandan people. That's not the purpose of the military, and one of the first things we need to understand and know is military is there for a purpose, to fight the interests of our partners, but for no other reason. It's not there to fight and cause destruction between the Ugandan people. When I talk about investors coming into the country, and standing in line wanting to work with the Ugandan people, that is no joke. When we talk about organizations and companies that say they can put 50% of the Ugandan people back to work in less than 2 years, that is a dream that is bigger than all of us, and it is a dream that we need to embrace on behalf of the Ugandan people. Because when you talk about people like the Clintons who are ready to go and invest, when you talk about people like Bill and Belinda Gates who are ready to go into Uganda and invest, when you talk about companies and corporations like Bloomberg that are ready to go into Uganda and invest in the people, when you talk about Aspen, Rockefeller, who are willing and ready to go into Uganda and work on behalf of the Ugandan people, people like Walmart, people like Microsoft, and the list goes on and on and on. You're talking about universities that know that some of the greatest minds in the world come out of Uganda. They have seen that in the few Ugandans that have been able to come out and come abroad and study. It has peaked to the level that they want to know what else is in the walls of Uganda, that you can have young Ugandans come out and score so highly and be so favorable in these universities because they take their education so seriously. The universities are ready to give scholarships and they're ready to work with the Ugandan youth. But you're talking about a government that continues to keep them down because that is not the direction they want the youth to go. You're talking about medical research and medical facilities that are ready to come in, set up programs, implement programs, work with those who already have degrees in nursing, in medical technology, and any other form in which they have degrees to work with them. In the hospitals, setting up programs, setting up research, investing money in those machineries and in those equipment, given not only free but in loans to the Ugandan government to build up those hospitals and those infrastructures to make them work in the way that they need to. They know the monies are there, they know the minds are there, they know the people are there. My fellow Ugandans, those inside of Uganda and those that are in the diaspora, can we start to open our minds, open our hearts to listen to one another and to move each other forward together for a better Uganda? We have no room in our hearts for strong men. It's like the professor just said, strong men, all they are weak men. And it's time for us to take back Uganda on behalf of the Ugandan people. Thank you so much for joining me here on Voice Uganda Radio at Freedom of Hand this Sunday. Please be with us next Sunday as we will have the chair of FUF and the chair of FADU. We will be answering your questions that you may have for them, as well as the panel has already put together some questions that I think all Ugandans will be interested in asking and will be interested in knowing as we move forward to a new Uganda. My fellow Uganda, great things are happening in these organizations, and we're moving the people of Uganda forward in a rapid speed. And I thank you so much for being a part of this program, so much for you being a part and participating in the ways in which you've chosen to. For the Honorable Zoe Bakoko, for my other chair, Dorothy, and me, Miss Brenda here at Freedom at Hand, we thank you so much for spending these 2 hours with us here on your Sunday. God bless you and enjoy the rest of your